faith, business, legacy. Welcome to Strategies for Success.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Strategies for Success. I'm Trav.
And I'm Tyler. Today we're moving into a new month of May, and we're talking about how systems can beat hustle. We're going to start off with our scripture. It's found in Habakkuk 2:2. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it.
Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. As we're rolling into this with systems beat hustle. So March was clarity, April was discipline, and May I knew was going to be Tyler's month. What is it?
It's talking about executing.
That's right, executing. So I'm going to share a quick story with you. There was a man who saw a small burger stand. You might already be figuring out who this is at this point. It was faster than anything he had ever seen. Orders came out in seconds, no confusion, no wasted motion. It wasn't hard work, it was a system. He realized there's something powerful here. Anyone can do the hard work, but not everyone can build something that works without them. So he didn't just build restaurants, he built systems. Those could be repeated anywhere. And that's why the small burger stand became a global empire. And we know it as McDonald's and Ray Kroc. So I don't agree with everything that Ray Kroc stood for, but I will tell you, they were the leading the way on how to put processes in place. If you've never seen the movie, The Founder, it goes in, tells kind of the Ray Kroc story, but it's pretty interesting how a salesman goes from, showing up at a burger stand to sell some milkshake machines, and then watching how the McDonald's brothers had laid out this process, and they went out to a tennis court and they drew it out, and they're spending hours out there, and they're making it almost like a dance rehearsal or a play. To they developed a machine, Tyler, that actually would put 2 shots of mustard, 2 shots of ketchup in one squeeze of the trigger. So they didn't have to, do a little drizzle of ketchup and a little bit of mustard. I don't know, how much of these are actually still in place now. As we were talking, now we're starting to see some of this stuff become automated, right? With AI and different things. But anyone can do the hustle, and you got to have hustle. You got to be able to get started. You got to have the hustle, but then you got to make it replicatable.
Yep. And going into the systems model, the first thing is hustle starts it, systems sustain it, and then systems multiply. So think about whenever you get started on something, if it's something that you're interested in, pick up a new hobby, want to start a new business, whatever that may be, most of the time your hustle starts the engine. So you're super motivated at the beginning, you're really excited about it, and then what happens over time, Travis?
Yeah, you just get burned out.
Get burnt out, and then what happens if you don't have a good system in place?
It falls apart.
Exactly. So hustle, that's what starts the engine. That's what gets everything rolling. That kind of stems off of your motivation at the beginning. Kind of on fire to do something, I would say. But you're doing whatever you can to make something happen, and that will work pretty well. There's a lot of people that can make that work through the whole lifetime of a business, but I'm sure we've all seen it, not just in business, but in different areas. Maybe it's at a church or whatever that may be, any kind of organization, but there could be 1, 2, could be 10 people that are really good hustlers. And then if someone gets sick or someone retires, then you notice a substantial drop off. And that's because they didn't always have the best systems in place. It was too reliant on one single person in their hustle or one single team in their hustle. And also when you think about it in a team aspect, Travis and I were working on something that I was really passionate about or really motivated about that he's not. Well, my hustle, my motivation is going to be higher than his is. And so my definition of hustle and his definition of hustle is going to be 2 different things.
Yeah, that's right. But you can divide and conquer too.
Yeah.
So you say, hey, listen, I don't want to solve the problems. I'd like to just be pushing the staff and pushing us forward.
Yeah.
Well, we divide and conquer, right?
Yeah. I think that goes back to if you are working on a team, knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses. Because there's times where if I was trying to do something that's not my strength and Travis is trying to do something that's not his strength, it could either just not be getting done because we don't want to do it, or it's not getting done very well. So we just going back to, you don't want to rely too much on your hustle. Now, I will say that is very important in the beginning of things. I'm sure that a lot of Christians probably have seen. Think back when you first got saved, or think back to somebody that you've seen has recently gotten saved, or whenever they first got saved. They're kind of on fire for God. They're sold out, think that they can go spread the gospel to everyone in one day. And while that's not a realistic thing, they have the kind of blind ambition, I guess you could say, to where a little bit naive in some things, but you think that you can do everything. And, that is very important in being super motivated and having that hustle. But you try to develop a system early on in that if you're super motivated, if you're a newfound Christian and you're just motivated to do everything, but you don't have a very good system of spending time with God every day and how to grow over time through the good times and the bad, not just relying on the initial emotion, you could say, first getting saved or first starting a new business, whatever that may be. But if you're too reliant on your motivation, I'd say that's more of an emotional type thing, and we all know emotions can swing. So don't just rely on that. But think about when you are super motivated at the beginning, try to come up with a system. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you are in the beginning stages. But think about what's a simple process, what's some simple systems that we can create early on while you're still motivated, while you're still pumped up about things, to make things easier, make things simpler to explain to others. And I'm sure we've all seen it. If someone tries to tell you how to do something, they do it in a 50-step process. It's no fun for anybody. And
it's kind of like getting one of those text messages, and it goes on for 3 pages. It's just like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, no thanks. You just disregard it. So try to make it simple. Try not to make it too complex. You just want to make it like the old saying, make it simple enough to explain to a first grader. And then as you go on further on in the process, you can streamline that system and kind of tailor it to the new needs that are found later on down the line.
So I liken this when I was thinking about you saying the hustle starts the engine, right? The old hand crank engine, you had to get out, crank it over, engine gets the fire, and now you're on the road, right? Mm-hmm. And I like the old saying that says, if your business only works when you're working, you don't really have a business. Mm-hmm. And we talked last week about several of the Navy SEAL teams, and they've said that they're training all the time because when they're sleeping, their enemy is training to kill them. But then they were talking about going into like these shoot houses and this training and this practice and everything that they do. And so they'd go in and one of the instructors grabs their leader and says, boom, you're dead. Now what do you do? Right. And they had to be ready to take over and just keep going. They had to have that system in place so that the mission wasn't a failure. And once you have that hustle, then it's time to move on to the system. So give you a practical example here. When I first moved back and took over in service, I went back, the shop was dirty. It needed to be cleaned. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I had to have a clean work area. And then as I got that cleaned up, started to get to know the guys in the shop. I think a few of the guys thought I was crazy because I spent about a week cleaning. And then from there, we started driving T-posts and color coding stuff and putting systems in place because I didn't like showing up at 8 o'clock and having a line of people standing there wanting to know what to do. So we put systems in place at 4 o'clock before we go home at 5 that we're going to make sure we have work for the next day. And it's got to be, like Tyler said, it's got to be easy and it's got to be replicable, right? So make sure that you can be repeated multiple times.
Yep. And that sounds like a pretty simple process where everyone could be on the same page. It's not like any super complex idea that's never been thought of before. It can just be something pretty simple.
But like if you want to kind of experience the McDonald's idea there, that's one of the few restaurants that you literally can order the same burger in California as you can in New York. And for the most part, if you order a cheeseburger from McDonald's, it's going to be a cheeseburger from McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
Because they have replicated that down to where a cheeseburger is a McDonald's cheeseburger.
Yeah, exactly. And what's a big thing? Think to a time where you're super motivated about something, you started something new, and then you say it's a new business, or say you're working on a new project and you got other people working on it with you, and then you get sick or you lose your motivation, whatever that may be, but you don't have a very good system in place. Well, that creates a lot of stress, a lot of conflict, can create a lot of conflict between your team. So we keep talking about negative things, but hopefully we'll highlight a little bit of the positive things that could come out of having a good system. But most people stall when it comes to the systems. They're just
Yeah.
going back and they keep thinking, "Oh, I just got to work harder." And sometimes working harder is not always the answer. Sometimes you got to
got
work smarter.
If you're, people think about this a lot, and you've probably been guilty of it yourself. I know I have. So the hustle, right? And you're like, I'm working. But it's not doing anything that's benefiting the entire team, especially if you're the boss.
Yeah.
And so you got to make it's replicatable.
You think Ray Kroc would be going out thinking he can make thousands of burgers a day for all across the country?
No,
Nope.
not going to happen.
Create a good system. So a system is simply a repeatable way to get the same results every time.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be super complicated, as we said. Just try to document it so that way other people can read it. You could pass it out to your team, but you want to make sure the biggest thing is it's repeatable.
If you're the old George Strait song that says they call me the fireman, if that's you every day running around putting out fires, that means you need a system in place.
Yep.
You say I can't take off, you need a system in place. And when you're saying this, think about it. You want to know how well your business is running. Well, leave for the day,
Yeah.
right? And if it falls apart, you got a problem. So you got to have a sales process. It's got to be a simple 2 or 3 step process. Then you got to follow up. So you train your people, you give them the process, and then you follow up to see, hey, how's this going? Did we meet our goals? Are we checking off the steps of the process? And then you have a workflow. So you can see back in service, we do a color code. I know you guys do the same thing. But when I'm leaving in the evening, I can drive by, and if I know that one of these lines has too much equipment, then I can tell that, hey, we're not looking at it in a timely manner. So you got to make sure that it's easy and it's replicatable.
Yep. And back to, you don't have a good system, it just can depend on your mood. It can cause your motivation. It can cause a lot of inconsistency, and that is a recipe for disaster. Teams can't replicate their success if they don't have a good system.
My oldest son, Trevor, is big into a lot of the AI stuff. And now the thing's coming that once you make it replicatable, it can be automated.
Yeah.
And so just think about that. That's crazy. But once you start getting that process in place, Tyler said that's where most of the people stall. But the truth is, once you get over that kind of that little hump or over that little hill, and you have a process in place, you're going to feel so much relief. You're going to be able to take a day off. You're going to be able to know that, hey, if I leave, everything's not going to fall apart.
And take that a little bit further, there's a lot of times where I've caught myself where I have a process or a certain way of doing things to myself. If we get a new hire and maybe I haven't trained them on this, or whoever's supposed to train them on this certain process, we haven't done that part yet. And it gets to that situation, I had this process in my head, but if I didn't explain it to everybody else, then they don't have the process, right?
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that you create a good process and then communicate that process to everyone so that you're all working on the same process.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about number 3.
Number 3, so systems multiply results without you. So
Yep.
you don't always have to be there. You don't always have to be the one you don't have to always have to be the guy with the shovel in the hole. You can create the process where someone else is down there and they're, I'm just saying that you don't always have to be on the front lines.
If you want to take your business to the next level, this is key, right? There is no way that you can be everywhere at once, right? That God is the only one that I know of that's omnipresent. And so if you're going to be able to replicate, you gotta make disciples, just like what Jesus taught in the Bible, right? He came to share the good news, and then he taught disciples who carried his work on.
Yeah, and this is kind of a hard one to think about, but when it all comes down to it, each one of us, one person is really not that important.
Yeah.
It's hard to think about that sometimes, but one person is not so important that if you are your business or you are your church or you are your organization, whatever that is, think about the business part. If you are the business, well, let's say you get to a retirement age and you want to sell the business. How are you going to sell it if it's just you?
Yeah, you nailed it right there. I mean, that is it. And if you've got to that point, if you're saying that, hey, look, I'm going to have to handle this because if I don't handle it, it isn't going to be done right. That's probably your first clue that you've got some problems with your business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when systems are in place, it allows other people to step up, allows them to execute, and results don't always depend on you. And that's really where growth can become possible, really take the next step. And teams can scale, businesses grow, leaders can really they can take a sigh of relief a little bit, I would say. I mean, I think there's a lot of times where people want to do more, but they're just not given the opportunity to.
Yeah, the goal isn't to be needed everywhere.
Yeah.
It's to build something that works anywhere.
Yep, exactly. And I've been listening to the book Atomic Habits. I haven't got super far into it yet, but it's by James Clear. I would highly suggest that. It's got some really good stuff so far. But one thing that he was highlighting early on in the book was talking about the transformation of the British cycling team. And he called it the aggregation of marginal gains. So he's explained it like thinking about getting 1% better every day. Or it's not all, you can't always do that every day, but thinking about getting 1% better. In this story, talking about the British cycling team, they really went almost like mad scientist mode, where they studied everything. They hired experts on everything. They studied their cyclist, small things like the right pillow to use, the right mattress to use so that they get the best sleep, the right seat to use, the right uniform they're wearing. I believe he said they actually wore indoor cycling uniforms on their outdoor races because they did all kinds of tests, and that the indoor ones were actually a better material. I think it was made them more aerodynamic or something like that. But basically, they were able to perform better. Talking about how they recovered, the proper way to recover, so that they were functioning at the highest point that they could when it was time for the race. Talking about how their muscles recovered. I mean, it was everything crazy. They even hired an expert to come in and show them how to wash their hands correctly to
Wow.
the most efficient lead, so that they avoid getting sick. Because if you get sick, or even if you're just a little under the weather, well, that's going to affect you physically. You're not going to be able to perform at your maximum. So to me, it was just an awesome story to think about those small marginal gains getting a little bit better at everything. So although you can't get 1% better at everything every day, they were trying to get 1% better in all different areas, their recovery, their training, their basically all areas of study, and then that in turn affect their performance. So at first, they were a team that had never really won anything. They were kind of a laughing stock. He said that there was some bicycle companies that were reluctant to even let the British cycling team use their brand of bicycles because they didn't really want their company's name associated with them, because they were just known as losers. So
That's terrible.
that's crazy. But Dave Brailsford was the coach, and he's appointed the performance director in 2003. He's the one that implemented all these changes and these small marginal gains. It redesigned bike seats, rubbing alcohol on their tires for better grip, use lighter racing suits, and we talked about the optimal pillows and mattresses for sleep. But within 5 years of 2003, the British cycling, they dominated the 2008 Beijing Olympics, winning 60% of available gold medals. So think about, I'm pretty sure they said before that they'd never won a gold medal. And then when we got to the Olympics 5 years later, they won 60% of the available gold medals.
Wow.
Now, think 5 years, I mean, that is a long time, but really in the grand scheme of their whole Olympic cycling team, that's really a very small window. I think you go from never winning anything, they got what they called these marginal gains, 1% better at everything, that these small changes multiplied over time, they stacked up and they became a big deal. I mean, they didn't go overnight from winning nothing to winning all the gold medals. It took them some time. They had systems in place to do that. But talking about the small marginal gains, being present and realizing I'm going to get better today, and I'm going to get better tomorrow and the next day, and that slowly compounded to where they were able to reach a lot of their goals.
You can put, and I would highly recommend this, you got to have systems in place for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And systems that make you personally better.
Yeah.
And so,
well, and he pointed out the fact, seems like a simple thing, but James Clear pointed this out, and it really almost blew my mind to think about. But he's talking about people focus too much on the end goal. So in that situation, they wanted to win the gold medal. Well, I don't think anybody, I mean, if you make it to the Olympics, you're a very high talented athlete to even make it there. But I don't think anybody goes to the Olympics or anything. I don't think people wake up and say, I don't want to succeed today. I really don't want to win. I mean, everybody wanted to win the gold medal at the Olympics, but so everybody has the same goal. What separated the athletes in this situation was their systems and processes, because everyone's got the same goal. They wanted to win. So it's not like the British team's goal was that much better than any other country's team. It was their systems and processes that separated them.
I think if you look at any major team, like teams that win the World Series or Super Bowl, right? It's because that's not one guy. One guy you could have an all-star and he can be the hustler. But when you see the magic happen is when people come together united by a team and by a process.
And think about this, coaches, I mean, it could be professionally, but even like in college, they don't have the same people on the team every year.
Yeah.
I mean, the coaches develop a good system with their program. So people graduate or people and professionally get traded or retire, whatever that may be, but they have those good systems in place that they can win with multiple different teams because of their systems.
Well, I'll just back up and say this. The first year me and Tyler did these podcasts, we'd come up with a topic, we'd sit down, talk it out, kind of study it, and then we'd get after it. And that was some planning. We planned out the entire year. We put a system in place, and now we know, hey, listen, we're going to be talking about how to execute, and we know what each one of these are coming up all the way through the year. And we try to develop training for you guys that not only would help us grow along the way, but where we're building every month. Like Tyler said, that 1%, right? We want to be growing every week when we're sharing these podcasts.
And the aggregation of marginal gains is what they called it. So
Yep, you got it.
I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's all about just getting better every day, focusing on what you can do today to make yourself better tomorrow.
That leads right into faith. Let's talk about faith, business, legacy, right? That's our strategy for success. So in faith, you're going to have some systems for growth. And I'll tell you one that's been on my mind here lately is I need to take time and make time for prayer and Bible reading. Now I read my Bible and I like to listen to my Bible on audio and I pray, but there's two kinds of systems. One that you can assume that you're going to get it done or hope that you can, or you can have a system. You don't have to systemize everything in your life, but you need to be like, look, I'm going to set 20 minutes out today to make sure that this happens.
Yeah, you got to have a good system there. I'd say even on the faith part of things, it's good to have some, if you want to call them mentors or peer. I mean, it could be someone your same age, but someone that you can lean on and get good spiritual advice and wisdom from.
That's
that
one
definitely
thing
helps a lot.
I've really appreciated about the Royal Ranger ministry that we're part of with boys ministry, that I look at a lot of these godly men and I say, man, I want to be like that. Right. And then those guys are checking in with me and they're mentors and they're guiding me and they're helping me point my life in the right direction. And I know that I've got someone kind of holding me accountable in a way.
Yeah. That's part of the system as well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk business.
Business, creating scalable systems. So we talked a lot about this, but we talked about the hustle starts everything, then you create the systems, and the systems, once they're created, as they move along, then you can fine tune those and make them applicable to as you grow. And so if you can start with a base system, but have room to grow, then you can adjust it as you go along. But that will really help you. If you can make it where it's scalable, that's super important, because if you can kind of begin with the end in mind and think, if I got one employee right now and I have 100 one day, then can you create this process that will work now, that will work with 100 people? And you may have to make a couple alterations, but the base process will work.
You know, when I first started in this position helping with boys ministry, the kids men director for the state, he said, look, you got to make this replicatable, right? It's got to be a system, because if you go to one church and they succeed, that's fantastic, but you're not going to be able to do it over and over unless it's replicatable. And so this is a program that's been around since the 60s. It's huge. It's massive. It's like going down a rabbit hole. And we would hand these guys a leader's manual that's, 300 pages thick, and they just would like, I can't do this. So we took it down to the core of the program, and the program was based on the 4 ways that we grow it's actually from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but we grow spiritually, we grow mentally, socially, and physically. So we broke it down to a 3-step process that we want to touch on every Wednesday night. We want to do a spiritual application, Bible application. We want to do a skill where we're doing hands-on trade or some kind of it could be a sports or fun activity. And then we're going to do where we're actually doing social and physical time. And that's where we're doing a team building exercise, like an escape room, or maybe like it could be even a sports game as well. But we broke it down to the whole program. We broke it down to 3 steps to make it very replicatable. And I think that's the scalable systems that they're talking about.
Yeah. And moving on to legacies, you want to create systems that outlive you. So we talked about,
Yep.
I'd mentioned if you sell your business, if you still got good systems in place, then your business can keep going on. And then you really have something valuable to sell in that situation. But think about not just business, but if you think about it, you have a good, I guess, I feel like faith and legacy tie a lot in together.
Yeah.
And so if you have a good faith system of spending time with God, with your walk with God, mentoring others, get along, spreading the gospel to others, if you do that and people see you doing that, then you're going to have systems that outlive you, and they're going to be a lot bigger than just you.
I know for me spiritually, that my mom took me to church all the time and really invested the time to teach me about the Bible and read books to me and talk to me about her faith. And that right there was a legacy that rolled right over into my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And think one person breaking the chain and really devoting a lot of time and sharing the gospel with others. No telling how many people that can impact in the end.
Absolutely. It's time for the challenge.
It is time for the challenge. So turn one task that you do every day into a system. Think about that.
That don't mean make a 50-step process.
Yeah, not
right?
50 steps, not 50 steps. But a lot of these tasks you probably already have a system, but you just don't have it written down. And then when you write it down, there's a lot of times you can see that's not always the most efficient way to do it. So
Yeah.
think about one thing that you do every day and turn that into an efficient system.
Well, you guys have sent us through the podcast. You've heard the challenge, and now it's time.
Now it's time to execute.
Strategies for success. We lead, we build, we bless. Faith in the fight, a vision inside. And legacy is our quest. Strategies for success. With courage we invest. Faith, business, legacy. That's our strategy for success.